great. And then number 2, so any declaration of interest from anybody? No. Okay. Okay. So no declaration of interest. And number 3, public open session. I assume we have no members of the public from what I can see on the screen. No. Okay. We can now move on to number 4, the minutes of the last meeting. So I guess we'll check for accuracy first, and then anything that's sort of outstanding, any action points afterwards. So page number 1. No. And page number 2. Okay. No. Thank you. And I think the outstanding actions in terms of, well, there weren't. I don't think there's anything outstanding particularly. I think the only things we're discussing are tonight, which is new business. So, okay. Okay. Well, let's. I don't think there's any matters arising then. So we'll go straight to number 6, which is items for consideration, terms of reference. So 6A, over to you, I think, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have discussed this before, I think probably about 2 weeks ago, but I just felt it was important that that everybody have the opportunity of just reminding themselves about the terms of reference and being clear that that is an accurate description about the remit of the committee. So over to you, but obviously, should we listen to any voices just to make sure that this is a perfectly accurate description of our intent? So.
Yeah. Any comments, please, from colleagues? Rob Pullinger, sorry, Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, just one comment. In the first block of bullet points on the item on appraisal, in terms of all of the other bullet points, it says the policies and procedures relating to, whereas it doesn't say that around appraisal, and I would consider that we probably ought to include that within the scope as well.
Okay. All right, I will speak with Peter about how we can look at that. Anything else?
Yes. Can I come back?
Hazel, sorry, Councillor Hayes Ramsey. Yep.
Sorry, can I come back on what Councillor Pullinger was saying about ensuring accurate assessments of performance are carried out? Well, we ask the town clerk and we take his answer. I don't see what else. Are you expecting us to do anything else in relate to that? Because we don't actually carry out staff appraisals.
I'm expecting us as a committee to approve the or be responsible for the control, development and improvements to the policies and procedures relating to appraisals.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I would agree with that.
As we are for all of the other items.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Foster. You're on mute, Frank. Councillor Foster, on mute.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
I don't see any reference, unless I'm not reading it correctly, to any involvement in the committee's situation on salaries. Do we have no involvement at all in what is set in salary in terms of rewarding staff with who have done particularly well or anything like that?
I think the town clerk has got some comments, so I'll come to him next, but you may be able to answer your question, Councillor Foster. Go on. Mr. Clark, please, town clerk.
The short answer to the question, I think, is no. The town clerk and chief exec, if the appraisals are indicate that a member of staff performance is either satisfactory or good, then they are able to progress through their spinal point range, and that progression is signed off by the town clerk. It's as straightforward as that. It's an operational matter. Yeah.
Okay.
But what I would expect is that the appraisal process is properly carried out, and we can talk some more about that in a moment, and that I confirm in writing to the personnel committee that it has been completed satisfactorily. Yeah. And that, you know, in this particular case, that we may want to review our current process to make sure that it is efficient and our policy is appropriate. And I certainly think we should do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Strawn, please.
Thank you. Just on the question of salaries, there's also a section on recruitment, selection and policies and procedures relating thereto. And to some degree, if we're making decisions over recruitment and selection, there must be an element of something to do with salaries there, such as when we recently appointed somebody, a town clerk, I believe. We had some say there.
Well, my understanding is there are essentially the town clerk and possible immediate deputies. The councillors will be involved in that process, but not anything below that line. So that's why I think the salaries issue perhaps is a bit different, because essentially we're appointing people at slightly more senior level. So I would say that would be where the difference is. But if the town clerk wants to expand on that, I'd be very happy.
I just wanted to reaffirm what you just said. So yes, it's for member input in regard to the town clerk. I personally don't think it's for member input connected to the assistants, although that's for a conversation. But anything below that level is down to the town clerk to deal with. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Ramsey.
I would say that if there is any increase in salaries, I'm not saying they don't deserve them, anything like that, but generally speaking, that then has to be looked at or consulted with or whatever with the finance committee to make sure that we can afford any changes in salary. That's how it's happened in the past. I'm quite happy to change that, but generally speaking, the town clerk would have come to the F&GP and said that he's looking to increase salaries to so much so that we can put it in our budget and the finance people know what's going on. Thank you.
Okay. Town clerk.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a matter of course. So if we look towards salary progression, one of the key issues would be can we afford it? But I would expect when I do the original estimates, for each salary to be built in. Yep. So effectively, maximum point of the range is built into the original estimates. Yep. So you shouldn't have to have a situation if someone's progressing from 1 to 2, you should be able to afford it, other than price inflation and pay inflation. Yep. It's the natural progression, but it should be reported to F&GP. Yeah. Reported, but not requested. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Councillor Frank Foster.
If it is the case that the town clerk's salary is a different situation, that the terms of reference surely should reflect that.
I agree.
Okay. Yep. We can look at that.
Thank you.
And Councillor Mark Foster.
Yeah, and just in relation to that, I mean, obviously we've got a number of employees within the town council. I'm not sure all council members would necessarily know what the spinal column point references are for the specific roles within council. And my question really is, should we be made aware of that, or is that something for the town clerk? Is there some clarification of what the parameters or what the spinal column points are for outside supervisor or whatever?
Okay, town clerk.
So yes, I know the answer to that question. Each post is graded according to responsibility, and there's a range within there. Some people are on spot salaries. That information exists within the establishment, and we can share that if members are interested.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful to circulate. Actually, town clerk, if you could do that. That'd be very helpful. And I think also by way of reference, I don't know if it's even publicly available online, or you could direct us to, but if there's a sort of the National Spine Point, if there's a website or a PDF or something, that I think if you could recirculate that certainly to members of this committee, I think that'd be very helpful, just by way of a reference point. Thank you.
I can include that. Obviously, it just came about with the pay inflation matter of about 2.5 weeks ago was agreed. So I'll attach that, and you can see that as part of the establishment. Yeah,
that'd be great. Thank you. Councillor Strawn?
Yes, as an observation, talking about grading of various roles, how does the town clerk consider we should be dealing with the grading process? Because I can recollect in a different authority that the personnel committee actually got involved in the grading process, because we undertook a total review of the whole salary system when we went from from national conditions to performance related pay, talking about Mid Beds Council in the early 90s.
Okay.
Town clerk.
there's two routes to go down here. Councils can either refer to national conditions of service, which we do, or they can adopt localized conditions of service. We don't have localized conditions of service. Yep. So when we grade a post, we complete the grading appeal, we go through the normal conditions of service, we come to a view which is of a national level of what someone's post is entitled to receive. It only becomes complicated if you go down localized conditions of service, and I definitely wouldn't suggest we go down that route.
Okay, Councillor Strawn.
Just coming back on that, in terms of dealing with the national conditions of service, and I quite accept we don't want local conditions at our level, but who actually puts together the grading of the post, and how is that scored just by the town clerk, or is it scored by the town clerk and others?
No, I mean, it would be effectively me going through and analysing it based on the job description and person specification, and then coming to a view on what that parameter threw out. So yeah.
Okay.
It's common practice. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions from anybody else? Okay, Councillor Pullinger.
So just on to that point, if a new role within the council was being created, would that be done on the basis that the clerk would grade what the role would be that he proposes, and then that would be brought forward to the personnel committee to be approved?
Okay, town clerk.
Yes. Yeah, so you'd have a new job description, a new person specification, and then you'd see sight of how we assess the grade. And then we would build it into the establishment, and then we would build it into our original estimates.
Okay. Any more questions at all, colleagues? We can move on to the next issue. Oh, Councillor Frank Foster.
Just a small point on the listing there. Under other responsibilities, a nitpicking point possibly, but I'm going to make it anyway. Health and safety, to ensure compliance with health and safety. Should it not have the word legislation after that?
I'd agree.
Okay, yeah, fair point. We can add that in, no problem. Yeah. I'll speak with the town clerk after the meeting about some of the changes, but I think it's all very helpful. Okay, Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so mine was related to the same bullet point actually, and should it be specific to sort of health and safety at work legislation? So, for example, any requirements we have to make sure that we follow health and safety requirements for, say, the market wouldn't fall under the personnel committee. That would presumably fall under TCM and the market roles. So, in relation to the health and safety of our employees, absolutely it comes under this committee, but other elements of health and safety potentially not.
Okay. Interestingly, town clerk and I had a conversation about this, and there isn't actually a dedicated part of the council, if you like, that deals with health and safety. So we did include it under this for sort of want of somewhere else. And I guess we had looked at it from the whole gamut of health and safety, but that is a fair point around the market and some of the external activities. So I don't know if the town clerk's got anything else he wants to add on that, and then I'll come to Councillor Foster afterwards.
I would agree with the observation that we've just had. It's a sensible adjustment. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Mark Foster, Councillor Mark Foster.
Yeah, happy with this. Could I just? I'm just seeking to clarify. Other than the suggestions that we've made and the points we've made here, how different would the points of reference that these points of references be in relation to what they were previously in terms of reference? Sorry.
I think that's probably a question more of Jonathan than it is of me.
Well, in that we have a bit more detail, I think. I mean, from what I saw before was extremely, was kind of a bit thin. So I think this is better. You know, from the very sort of basic level from what I've seen before. So other than that, I don't have, you know, much else to go on. So I think it's definitely an improvement. So I do feel reassured by that.
I'm saying the obvious to everybody. I think with any of this, every one of our committees should do this before it does anything else. It should just sit down and reflect whether or not this is accurate or not. But fundamentally, as we know, members are there to set the policy parameters, and that's the way that this should read. It's setting those policy parameters and setting that strategy, and then it's for the officers to implement that and then to be held to account. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Moving on then to so number 7 then, moving on to item 7. Are there any more items for information? No. Okay, Councillor Russell.
What about 6B?
I was just going to say, I think we've missed one out.
Sorry, my apologies. Thank you. I'm glad people are on the ball. Okay, 6B, the appraisal process. Sorry, Town Clerk, I cut you off then.
Okay. This is just a verbal update for now, and you and I have talked about this anyway.
Yeah.
Obviously, we are ensuring that all of our employees are properly appraised this year, because that's what they're entitled to receive. We are ensuring that everybody has professional supervision once a month, which links into the appraisal process. We have an existing appraisal process that I've inherited. I think it's just about okay. And one of the things that we'll be doing is we'll be reviewing that process, and we will be putting a new appraisal process forward for agreement at committee in probably about 2 months from now. At the moment, the other managers are appraising all of their staff. Hopefully the process will be finished in about 2 weeks from now. And I am appraising the managers. At the end of that process, you will have a documented appraisal. You will have a review of the job description, a review of the person specification, and you will have an individualized training plan that then links into our corporate training plan. Yep. What you'll also have is a clear recommendation from each manager about individual's performance and a recommendation as to whether or not that individual may progress through their spinal point. What I built into the process is I will look at every single appraisal document, and I'll satisfy myself that it's been completed appropriately. And if the evidence is there for people to progress through the points, then they can progress. Obviously, it's important for us to honor our responsibilities as an employer, and this should have taken place consistently. It should have done. Yeah. And we need to make sure that that goes through. But as I say, the policy at the moment is okay, but I think it needs to be modernized, and I'll put that new policy to members to make sure that they're happy with it. At the end of the process, then I'll do a short report just to confirm that we've completed that. Yep. So it gives you absolute assurance that what we're doing. And as we were talking about before, if people progress, then I will have looked at the budget. I'll have made sure that we have sufficient allowance to do that. And that progression will be built into the original estimates for the new financial year as well. And there will be a report to F&GP so that they can be aware of the situation. But what I won't be doing is sharing individual people's personal information. And obviously I can be treated as a separate issue. So I'd look for committee to give me clarification about how they want to appraise me and on what performance objectives they would want to set for me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Town Clerk. Councillor Russell.
Just to say that the way we've done it in the past is that the appraisals take place in October, November, and appropriate recommendations made, but it does not take effect until the next municipal year on the 1st of April, along with any nationally agreed pay increases. So there's plenty of time to make sure that what is being proposed is written into the next year's budget. That's the whole reason for any recommendations coming to a meeting of the Personnel Committee in November.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any further questions on that from anybody? Okay, thanks for that. Oh, sorry, Councillor Strong.
Yes, just the question of the Town Clerk's appraisal. I know you're looking at that in some respect, but that is obviously going to be a slightly different process, because much as the Town Clerk might like to do it, I don't think it would be appropriate for him to appraise himself. You've probably got some ideas on that, Chairman. Is it appropriate for you to share them at the moment and discuss them as we're discussing the appraisal process generally, or would you wish to leave that for the time being?
I'll ask Councillor Russell to speak, and then I will add comments afterwards. So Councillor Russell, and then I'll respond as well.
Well, we already have a process in place agreed by council. The details of it may need updating, but it's a council decision, a full council decision, that the mayor, the deputy mayor and the chairman of personnel appraise the town clerk. And it's always been the practice in the past that every other councillor gets a chance to input into that process with any comments they have about the previous year and any suggestions for targets in the coming year. So if that needs to be changed, or if anybody wants to change that, that would have to go back to council, because that's a formal council decision.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was just about to say that I was made aware that obviously a decision had been taken that the sort of trio of people will be running that appraisal process, and obviously we'll be seeking input from colleagues on that as we go through that process as well. And obviously we do have some of our own ideas, but we are trying to seek input from colleagues as well. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so just on that last point, so I think there was a clear, and I would say consensus, but certainly a large feeling amongst colleagues previously when we discussed this matter with the previous when the previous town clerk was in post, that a number of members were not satisfied with the existing appraisal process for the town clerk, and that one of the actions, and I don't know whether it was a formal resolution at the time, but certainly one of the clear actions that we had agreed was that we would review as a whole the appraisal process and not keep the existing process. So I think we actually shouldn't assume that we're going to keep the same process with those three members of council performing the appraisals, and that we actually need to fully reassess how we operate the appraisal process and the overall management of the town clerk position.
Okay, Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I've been on the record saying this before, but I think we need to review the clerk's performance management and appraisal process to make sure it is as effective as it could be. The main areas that I would like to see us go into, apart from who obviously should be taking part in that process, is the way objectives are set, the frequency with which objectives are set, and the frequency with which objectives are checked. And I think annually is not sufficient. So I hope that a future agenda can consider some proposals and have some discussion about how the clerk's appraisal process may work in the future, please.
Okay, we can look at that. Although I am, I know that council obviously had already made a previous decision about this appraisal process. So I'm not quite sure how it would progress from here. Whether we want to kind of raise that again to make sure people are happy, or what, but maybe we can put this in the paper. Councillor Strawn.
Yes, Chairman, you've asked us for some observations already on terms of what we are thinking in terms of the future, in terms of targets and just how we deal with that. I think it might be worth just considering the formal appraisal of the town clerk at another meeting and the format of it, because it just struck me as it might be appropriate to consider the chairman of personnel and the chairman of the two other standing committees, namely PLOS and Finance and General Purposes, rather than Appeals Committee, being part of the appraisal subcommittee, obviously with the mayor. And I think that might be a better way of dealing with it, in terms that the chairman of the committees will be dealing directly with the clerk, obviously seeking input from other councillors, but I think that would be a possible other way of dealing with it, but that's for another time.
It is, yeah. No, I don't really want to get into discussion necessarily now, but I hear sort of people's point of view, and we can sort of discuss that, how we can take it forward outside the meeting, but we can certainly have a look at some of those things again. Town clerk.
I'm obviously keeping out of this conversation.
No, that's okay. That's fine.
As I should.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's okay.
Just one observation. I think it's important that there should be some, I call it professional supervision, and that the formalities of that should be agreed soonest, bearing in mind that I've been in post for about 5 weeks. So I think from that perspective, I have regular conversations with the mayor and the deputy mayor, and indeed the chairs of committee. But I think it's important to, as another member said, it's important to do that at least on a monthly basis, as well as an appraisal. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Right. Where are we now? So so yeah, moving on to item 7 then. Item for information. No, nothing. Nothing for this one. So a public open session. We don't have any attendees, so I think I can skip over that one. And I think we can now move into section 9 exempt items. So if we all want to sort of say farewell and then log back in again, and we'll move into the exempt items. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.